Get ready to quit the build.
Here we go!
The QTB crew is rounding up all the gaming news and hot topics of the week with a little extra something. And here are your hosts, Bruno, Brad, and Nick.
What is going on? Welcome to the QTB podcast. My name is Nick, and I am joined by the one, the only. It's Brad to the future. What's going on, man?
Nick, what is going on? Episode 101. 101 Dalmatians, we're here. You know what I mean? We just celebrated our 100th episode. What an episode it was. We had so many guests, so many fun things, so many nostalgia moments we look back on over the first 100 episodes, and now we're kicking off the next 100.
The next hundo, and we're doing it in style because we have got just a lot of incredible things happening. Of course, we've announced some partnerships over the last week and a lot more as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But more importantly, before we get into our news, we've got some very special guests joining us today.
Do we?
Oh,
Nick?
yes. Oh, yes. Yeah? First of all, and this is his second appearance on the podcast. I can't believe we hadn't had it back sooner because he is the one and only Discord Lord. Everybody say hello to Terry.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Yeah,
it took me like 75 episodes to make a return.
And you got a fancy new mic at all. Look at that RGB lighting.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Came to play. He's got the background, the microphone, the beard. Come on. He's got it all.
Yeah. So for those of you that may not know, Terry is our Discord Lord, as we call him. He is our moderator on Discord. And we'll be getting into a little bit later talking about some of your blog articles and maybe preview some of the stuff you have coming up because you're a rambling man, out there exploring the wilds of West Virginia. A lot of fun.
I do love to travel.
That's it. All right. And of course, our second guest, and this is his first time on the podcast, but very much an important part of the QTB network. Give it up from the Double DQ podcast for Enzo. What's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Very important question. Is the straight block in Tetris the best protagonist in video game history? Yes or no?
You're coming in with a very deep question. The answer is yes.
If you've ever listened to the Double DQ podcast, I tend to do those sorts of things.
The cold opens, I've heard them. They are fantastic.
We love it, though. No, but that's a good question, though. Our audience, you got to let us know in the chat. What do you think? Mm-hmm. You got to let us know your answers, and we'll bring them in a little bit later once you start sending them to us. So
I will say that the T block is highly underrated. It's going to get you out of a lot of binds. It's a very versatile piece, but at the end of the day, the line is the only thing that's going to get you that Tetris.
I've never been upset to get a line piece in Tetris. It's always been there for me.
Right, or you could be like me and just get like 10 blocks in a row.
Yeah, I was going to say there's been times you get that straight line and you only have there's not a good place to put it. Now you've got like this weird thing sticking up on the side. I don't know. 99% of the time it's worth it, but I feel like there's 1% of the time I it's not what I want.
I'm sorry the straight piece hurts you, Brad. I'm sorry. You've had a history with it apparently.
Maybe I'm not an expert Tetris player. Maybe I'm a novice. I got to learn how to use it better. So
I have been so scarred by Tetris 99 that all the pieces are bad to me. Like I can win like Pac-Man 99. I can win any other battle royale given enough time. But I think I've gotten to like number 2 on Tetris 99, and the person in front of me is always just like an absolute wizard. Like there's no shot. I can't do it. I gave up. That's all. I gave up.
I had my spell with that game, and same thing. It was always someone who was just their livelihood banked on them being good at that game when I was playing.
It seems to be that way. There is a very competitive pro scene in Tetris.
We're already getting hot takes, Nick. I think Epic Capture Productions thinks it's both a blessing and a curse.
There you go.
So, I feel that way. I'm with you, Epic Capture. I feel the same way.
There you go. Well, before we get into our big story, I'll tell you what is definitely a blessing, and that is going to be our friends over at Belkin. Today's big story is sponsored by Belkin. Listen, hey you with the mom, okay? Mother's Day is this Sunday, and you didn't get her anything. But don't worry, every well-known option like flowers and whatnot are already tacking on huge last-minute fees and surcharges to get a dozen roses somewhere, and shipping anything is still a nightmare. It'll probably get there on time, almost definitely, maybe not at all. Yeah. This Mother's Day, give yo mama the gift of gadgetry with an upgrade to her cell phone case, charging cables, and a whole lot more. There are unique and practical gift ideas that say you care, like the Boost Charge UV sanitizer and wireless charger that's going to keep her phone fresh and clean all in one convenient place. Use our link in this episode's description and then use code MOM2022 at checkout to save $15 on your order. That's MOM2022 at checkout when you use the link in our show notes. This Mother's Day, wow her with the latest tech from our friends at Belkin. You like that one, Brad?
I do. That was great. I have to say, I have the sanitizer from them, and it works great.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It really does. You know, I've got a young kid who gets grimy hands and likes to grab my phone, and I wipe it down. But the surest way to make sure it's clean is that UV sanitizer, and those things work great, and it's seamless. You just stick your phone in, come back in a few minutes, and it's clean. You know, you got a clean phone. So, and
you can shave $15 right off that price with our exclusive promo code there. So definitely check it out. And thanks as always to our friends at Belkin. All right, well, let's get into the big story for today. And this one is coming from Ars Technica, talking about Square Enix selling off their Western game studios and their games to Embracer. This was a pretty big story that came through because honestly, you know, you think about all of the major franchises that Square Enix over the last decade or so has acquired or created in order to kind of branch out into Western territory, right? A company that's largely known back in the 90s and 2000s for their JRPG offerings, among other things. Now, you know, involved in Just Cause, Tomb Raider, the list goes on. And so many of those franchises are now being given over to the Embracer Group as part of this massive acquisition, $300 million. Just before we get into the details, Brad, what is your immediate hot take on this? Because we are just in the era of acquisitions, and with a 9-figure price tag, this one is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, but in the realm of what we've seen in the last year, it seems light. The deal seems low. I mean, but it comes with the caveat of a lot of these titles being things that maybe were under par or didn't perform as well as anticipated, or you know. I feel like there's franchises there that have the opportunity, you know, more historic ones like Tomb Raider that are really valuable, but more recent ones, I know like Marvel's Avengers is a part of the deal, and Guardians, both of those, I mean, Guardians did perform better than Avengers, but I feel like overall those did not live up to the hype. So I feel like it's a deal that has a lot of developers in it, a lot of games involved, but what's the shining piece? What's the crown jewel of that deal? I don't know. Enzo, what do you think? What in that deal seems like a win for Embracer?
I'm kind of one of those people that whenever a company acquires a lot of new to them properties, I just see this internal gear turning to how can they respin it and recoup more revenue from the same re-releases and the same remakes. And so I don't necessarily think that personally that there's any one particular gem in my mind. It's the fact that I think that a company with any IP who can spin it and turn it and re-bring it back out in a different way or so on and so forth is going to just be able to nickel and dime with the ones, like you said, that didn't perform well. What's a good example? I'm looking at our list here and bring back Legacy of Kain, you know? That would be great.
Yeah, there are a lot of IPs that are long dormant, right? Over 50 titles and many IPs that it spans. And honestly, I mean, when you look at some of them that have been, you know, so many people clamoring for new entries like Deus Ex, which coincidentally, Eidos Montreal, which is one of the studios that was acquired by this deal or will be acquired, actually said in the same conference call where the acquisition was announced that their next title is going to be a Deus Ex title. So they are definitely trying to bring back a franchise that, man, I mean, for a lot of people, the original Deus Ex games there are right up there with the greats for open world exploration and especially sci-fi games. Now, I do want to pull up a very interesting graphic here that shows kind of the balance of power in the gaming world. And for those of you that are watching, this will be a little bit blurry, but I promise I am going to zoom in here in a moment. This is showing basically just who owns what with just the current the power structure of the gaming industry right now. You know, you have Microsoft, Ubisoft, which largely just owns all of Ubisoft. And then you have down here a little something called the Embracer Group, and that is who acquired these Western studios. Now, we did get a question from Roy Cook in the audience who said, no more Final Fantasy. No, there will be more Final Fantasy. So one of the things is that Square Enix is only selling off a lot of their Western games, whereas the Eastern titles, right, a lot of their original IPs like Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, and even some others that are going to still remain with their Western studios. I'm thinking of titles like Just Cause, Outriders, and even Life is Strange. Those are produced by Western studios and are a part of Square Enix, and they will continue to be even after this acquisition. So no, Final Fantasy 16 will almost definitely maybe happen at some point like GTA 6 in the next 50 years. But when we go into the Embracer Group down here, you can see just like the ridiculous number of games. And Embracer Group is not a name that gets thrown around a lot, but look at all of the powerhouse studios that they own, right? New World Entertainment, that's a huge one by itself. I believe I saw even Gearbox Entertainment, 3D Realms, Digix Art. We interviewed the guy that made Road 96, Jon Finis. They just released that one recently. Big title, THQ Nordic. I mean, these guys own Codemasters. I'm sorry, that's
right.
I got carried away. That's EA. They don't own that yet.
But Nick, to your point though, if they've got all these other big devs in their lineup, I don't know what this really adds. I mean, Terry, what do you think? What's your reaction to this news?
So when I saw who they're acquiring, I figured with the price tag, it makes sense. I mean, we're not talking about $1 billion, acquisition here. We're talking about $300 million, which is, I mean, it's still a big chunk of change, but I'm thinking the big one from that is going to be Tomb Raider. And then also the Deus Ex. I know a lot of people have been wanting to see a new Deus Ex game, and it was nice to see that announcement that they're going to be doing that. And Embracer, they do a lot of mobile games as well, so maybe they might be able to incorporate some of those franchises into their mobile stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And that is one big thing. Yeah, they've been making a lot of mobile titles, right? Like you had just mentioned, that have been part of Square Enix's strategy as of late. They've been trying to move a lot more into the mobile space and away from really just focusing on the consoles. But I mean, one has to wonder, because I think there are some games that get kind of caught up in the void as the result of this. Brad, you brought up a really good point about what's happening right now with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, right? This game released to critical acclaim. People really enjoyed it. And yet the sales numbers were pretty underwhelming at their latest sales call. So, we're seeing an imbalance here where a game that probably took a long time to put out, and also was a day one offering on Xbox Game Pass, or not day one, but eventually came to Xbox Game Pass, still didn't quite meet their target. And so I think, Square Enix is now looking and saying, do we really want to be a part of these big franchises? I think in a way it's kind of disappointing, because I think they sent the Tomb Raider series in the right direction. A lot of those newer Tomb Raider games, I think, really did well for them. They were hit or miss. The ones that I played were honestly outstanding and really captured the original kind of feel of Tomb Raider while still being their own thing. And right now, I don't think a whole lot of people are doing narrative-driven games as a third-party studio better than Square Enix. A lot of their titles, when they get into that, like Life is Strange, right? That's nothing but a narrative game. Where I do have to wonder. One interesting caveat from this is going to be Marvel's Avengers, right? Live service game, and this game was already struggling. The latest expansion with that added Black Panther, it didn't do well. And now, from what I'm hearing, Embracer is going to have to get authorization from Marvel to add anything to the game. So for something that's already struggling, Brad, you kind of have to figure that title is probably in its final months or years, right?
And that was the point of this deal. If I'm looking at why Square Enix did this, you look at the bottom line of the business now, right? Game Pass has changed. It's changed the industry for better or for worse. In a lot of ways, for the consumer, it's better. We have the Netflix of gaming. We can go on and pay a flat fee and play all these games that we want for one monthly price. However, for developers, now all of a sudden 1/3 of your potential market value, your bottom line, your sales, is now essentially evaporated. So it has to be taken into account in terms of what you spend to develop these games, the time it takes, and like you said, for that, live content you deliver in games like Marvel's Avengers, the cost it takes week in and week out to continue to support those games. All of that hits your bottom line. All of that's part of your overhead costs for your company. And all of a sudden, if these games are floundering, they don't have massively successful sales, and now you're trying to support that with, a part of your employee base that you pay, eventually these are going to flounder and die. And so I think this was an opportunity to get some cash back, get some cash flow back in the wheelhouse, cut some of your more lukewarm titles, give them to someone else who may pick them up, like Enzo said, and maybe try to repackage them or revive them in a way. But for Square Enix's standpoint, they were done and said, I need to wipe my hands. Let me get some money back and repurpose that money towards our titles that we know are going to do well.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Go ahead, sorry.
Because that's a cash sell. I mean, it's not like they're getting any kind of other caveats to the deal. It's just straight up cash. And Brad said it best. I was thinking the same thing. I was going to throw that in.
Yeah. I mean, and again, $300 million. Like we keep talking about this over the last year or so we've been doing this podcast, that like all of these bigger and bigger and bigger numbers have come out for acquisitions, where 300 million would have been like the number one acquisition like a year ago, and now it's like it's nothing. It's like it's just another deal happening in this space.
It's like 1/200th of the Activision deal.
It's a drop in the
you know
bucket.
what I mean? Like 300 million versus 68 billion, right? Like it's just incredible to think about the massive size of that Activision deal. But still, though, it's not chump change, right? For these mid-level developers and things like that, that is a big chunk of their business, right? That's a lot of money that can go into new development or repurposing, like wherever they want to focus that cash flow. It really gives them more flexibility instead of being tied down to these lukewarm or floundering titles that you don't know how much longer you got with them. And then do you get any value? They just die and then they're retired. I think they got a steal of a deal here to get 300 million back to put back into the business.
I've heard a lot of jokes that once Embracer buys out Square Enix, that Xbox can just go buy out Embracer. The consolidation gets consolidated.
It's going to get to the point where they're going to start to have to nix these deals just to keep competition going, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to see too much consolidation, and then there be no competition, and that then you're going to have lack of creativity.
Right. Now,
by 2030, we're all going to be playing Disney consoles anyway. So
you're probably not wrong.
You know what, Enzo?
That's the real end game.
Is that the first Enzo Nostradamus prediction here?
we'll work the title of that, but yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I tried. That was. I went on that. I just went for it. So
absolutely. Yeah, and one other thing I think we have to consider, and I'm going to throw this question to you, Enzo. One of the games that Crystal Dynamics has supposedly been working on and is going to have to work on through this acquisition is that Perfect Dark remake that we saw like a cinematic preview for, and then we haven't heard anything. There's been a lot of news that there's been some trouble internally with the studio. There's a lack of direction. Do you think we're ever going to get that Perfect Dark game? I say no.
Do you think we're ever getting Half-Life 3? Like,
at least Perfect Dark was announced.
Yes. I think that, man, without knowing exactly what's going on behind the closed doors, I don't know. I can't. I say yes, but I say that it's not going to be what. It's always going to have a constant iteration, a new change, and a new direction, as long as these things persist behind closed doors. When that'll happen, I don't know. I think we'll get it. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you still going to be excited for it? Are you going to still be excited for that if when it finally drops? Like, are we holding out for that, or have we lost interest? Are you excited for it, Terry? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I played the original one. I get the hype. I would definitely pick it up when it came out. But there's a lot of franchises that we've been waiting for a long time. And we were looking at Metroid. There's a bunch of them that we just keep holding hope, and eventually they'll come out. Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like both Perfect Dark and Half-Life 3 are giving Avatar the movie a run for its money of the most delayed sequel of all time.
Right.
Like, and I think that just got a title, right? James Cameron finally said, "Hey, we've got a title for the second movie."
It's on its way.
Okay, when was the first one? Like 11, 12, 15 years ago? I mean, come on. Like I want these games to come out, but I'm losing that energy to like want and wait for it. Like I've got other stuff I want to go play. Like what's going to draw me back to want to play those? I don't know. I'm losing energy, Nick.
You're losing energy. Well, I'll tell you how you can get your groove back, and that is by supporting us on Patreon. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, as always, to our Patreon supporters, like our QTB and Fuego supporters, Epic Capture Productions, Matt.Bat, Nick, the Dudist Monk, Epic Capture Productions and Matt.Back, our QTB and Fuego supporters, and our QTB Plus supporters, Nick, the Dudist Monk, Indie Gamiacs, Alan Abadessa, Mr. Grove Games, the Intergalactic Pinecone, and Fluffy Bunny. Listen, you are going to get access to all sorts of incredible bonus content. We just released our QTB Nostalgia Vault episode about 90s books. Bruno and myself went in and talked about that. And this month, we've got a double header, okay? We're going to be doing 90s fast food joints. So our first episode is going to be on McDonald's. Our second episode is going to be on Burger King. And the best part is our patrons actually do get to contribute to that conversation with their comments. So thank you so much again to our Patreon supporters for helping keep the lights on. And on that note, we're going to get into our next story, guys. And this one is coming from our friends over at pushsquare.com. I don't think we've had pushsquare.com before, but they are a PlayStation-centric news article source. And the reason why we're talking about this today, and this came out about like 5 or so days ago, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle going down over there at Sony with the unveiling of their PS Plus tiers. Now, we've talked about this on a previous episode, right? About how the tiers are going to include a premium tier that is, I think it's going to be like $120 per year if you buy the annual, so about $10 per month. That's going to give you access to paid demos, right? In addition to their streaming services, they're going to add on that ability to play demos. Well, supposedly, this article is stating that there has been some confusion because on their dev forums, they reveal that any game that has a wholesale price of $34 or higher must include a 2-hour trial for the PS Plus premium members to play. Now, obviously, that caused an uproar with the devs thinking, okay, well, how are we getting compensated for this? Because now we're adding on, a substantial amount of work to produce a timed demo, right, to your specifications, to which, as of right now, they have not been told they will be compensated anything at all. Not a squat zilch. And remember that some titles could be cross-platform, right? So there is that issue. It's not necessarily going to be only for exclusives on the Sony PlayStation. And we're going to get into some of the crazy toxicity that's been spreading on Twitter as a result of people rightfully bashing this. So, Brad, I have to ask you, where does this stand with you? If you're let's say you're a game developer, right? Let's do a little role play here. And you're told that your $40 game, your $60 game must include a 2-hour demo and you will not be compensated for it to put it on the PlayStation. What you going to do? Who you going to call?
I'm going to call my lawyer about my contract that I signed for this development deal.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, in the 30, that's why I reacted when you were reading that out. The $34 mark is a very, very unique number. It's not like it's a flat round number. 34 was thought by someone to say that's the breaking point where anything over $34, we think there's enough development going on and there's a big enough contract we're paying them to make this game that they should take on making a 2-hour demo for free. And the people who are going to feel that are the people who make those $35, $40 games. The people who make the AAA, the AAA titles, AAA developers who make the $60, $70 games, there's maybe a little bit more argument that they could easily churn out a demo for a 2-hour demo. But for the mid-tier developers, this is tough. This is not welcome news to now be on slate to put out a 2-hour demo when if it's a cross-platform game, PlayStation players get it get a 2-hour demo on release. Game Pass members get to play the whole game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I hate to say that, but I don't know. Enzo, Terry, what are you guys' thoughts? I feel like this is a dig at the developers to benefit, to try to throw a bone at consumers.
I think it's a lot of work for the developer to put this out, or maybe they're not going to do anything with it. They're going to give their intern an opportunity to just go and just code some real simple stuff. Because are you making a demo like a traditional demo where it's halfway through the game or a part of the game you want to see, or is it just like Steam where the first 2 hours is free and you get to play it and then that's it? You can make this really cheap, or you can put some effort into it, but I don't see why you would want, especially with the cross-platform stuff, especially at $35 value, it's not going to be exclusive. It's going to be on the Switch and on, Microsoft PC. It's going to be everywhere. And it's just going to be one extra step for Sony. And why even do it? It's like the developers that had to develop for the Wii with the third party games. They had to shoehorn in this requirement from Nintendo to have the controls. It's not quite as extreme, but it was really tough for them to do that.
Enzo, I saw you snicker. You have a comment you want to make. I can tell you're stewing over there.
There's a couple comments, but
yeah.
First off, I'll say that I'm in favor of PS Plus having some sort of change. Like it's been the same thing for a long time now, and I've had it for a long time, and I can't remember the last time I went and downloaded a game that was free for each month or whatever. Like there needs to be some difference in the way the formula works. I don't think this is necessarily it, but and I think Terry said Steam. Steam has the 2-hour play mark that you can literally, if you buy a game, play it for 2 hours, you can return it, and one of the options is I didn't like it. So that's going to cause a little bit of a thing. Also, is there any limitations on these demos? Like, can someone literally just say, "Here's the first 2 hours of my game," and at the 2-hour mark, there's the timer. It clicks off, and it says in the little corner, like we've seen before in other things, like pay now to keep playing.
Extend your play. Yeah.
I immediately think, and from what I am reading so far, it's a restricted to 2 hours of gameplay, meaning that you're downloading the entire game, because what they want to upcharge you at that point, right? Because now it's so easy. You're being lured in with the free demo that really you're paying for as part of the service. And then once you've played that demo, it's like, man, you got the whole game. Just give us the full price, and you're off to the races. I think back to, I want to say it was Super Smash Brothers Brawl, where as part of the game, they had like the ROMs for a lot of the classic games that these characters came from Smash, and you could play demos, so like Mario 64, and in there was The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And I think it was limited to like 60 minutes, or maybe it was 2 hours. And of course, the speedrunning community got together and said, how can we roll credits on this full title when we only have 2 hours to actually play it? And they did it. They found a way to mess with the RAM of the games, how they always do it with the crazy speedrunner, the any percenters, and managed to roll credits on this game with no save files and just all these crazy limitations. So you do have to wonder, how badly will this be abused? I also have to wonder, with that arbitrary number saying if your game is worth $34 or more, right, we're going to make it have a demo. How many $40 games just got priced at $33.99, right?
Yeah.
Just to get around it.
Or priced higher, like priced really high. Like the devs are going to go back and negotiate that they want more money, so that Sony's going to have to charge more, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's
it does seem like one extreme or the other is the case with that.
Yeah, you're gonna find that it's gonna be super cheap, easy to beat games that you could beat in less than 2 hours, or these huge, massive, and strong titles that you barely scratch the surface in 2 hours. Right? You're not gonna find that mid-tier game that you get 5, 6, maybe. You can't beat a third of a game in two hours. Right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna lose that middle ground on this game development. You're gonna have extremes, as Enzo said, in terms of, wow, I beat that game in 20 minutes, or man, I played it for a week and I've completed 4% of the game, right? So at least on PlayStation, I don't know how that's going to transcend across the other platforms, but it does put a wrench into, it makes me think that, I get what you're saying, Enzo, there needed to be a refresh in terms of how PS Plus is looking, but it feels like they're just grabbing at what others have done and trying to kind of like stack it on and say, hey, look what we've built. And it's not really something original. It's just kind of pulling at strings and grasping from what's out there to say, let's try to pull what we think is the best from Game Pass and from Steam and all this, and say, let's offer something similar. And I don't feel like there's no cohesiveness to it. It just feels like it's kind of like a mixed bag of like a grab bag of benefits, and you have to reach in and see what you pull out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, in not every situation, not every circumstances, but what's it going to do to certain games where it's like, now they have to think about the structure of what they're doing. It's like, we have to make sure that we form a demo around what we want to. Like this is our 2-hour commercial now for what we want to put out. So how much is that going to impact the quality of the product, given that you're now placing your time elsewhere? It's going to be interesting, but
there are studies out there that state that offering a demo for a paid game will decrease the sales of the game. It's not ironclad, but like people are having that discussion now, and you can be assured that developers are going to be having that discussion with focus groups of like, if we let you play this game, how much more likely are you to buy it or to not buy it?
So I think. Do we even go ahead?
Go ahead, Terry.
I was gonna say, do we even need demo? Like, do we want demos? I remember getting Xbox Magazine, PC Gamer Magazine with the demo disc, and I played those demos over and over and over again.
I miss it.
But with modern gaming, we have reviewers out there. We have YouTube videos. We have all this information about these games that, I mean, if I'm looking at a game, I know whether I want it or not. Like, I might have played 2 demos in the last 10 years. Like, I don't even know if this is necessary.
Yeah. Well, and I think Epic Capture Productions raises a really good question, Nick. He talks about, is this demo targeted towards a certain demographic? And I think that's a really valid question. I mean, you just made a good point, Terry. Us hardcore gamers, I think we know just by seeing the game, seeing the previews, seeing some reviews, we know if we want to buy it or not. But is there still an audience out there who wants to try it themselves, get it in their own hands, experience what the game's like, and before they commit to buying something? I mean, do you feel like there's still people out there who want to do that?
Terry kind of said it best. Where like, if I want to know something about a game, I go to a YouTube video. I'm, of course, I have a lot of responsibilities in my life, so that is what my life allows time for. If I want one step further, I go on Twitch and maybe I can interact with someone who's playing the game and ask questions and get more of a hands-on opinion of it. But like the demo, more, I remember those days. Those days were wonderful of getting those discs, sometimes getting the magazine home and someone stole the disc. Yeah. It's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think I'm personally past the days of the demo.
There's a lot of Balan Wonderland owners that would love to have a demo.
And that's a great example, Terry, because so many people that have broken down what went wrong there went back to that demo of being like, this demo sucked and it killed any hope that the game had it was going to be a failed launch no matter what, but the demo made it clear in advance of like, here's how bad it's going to be. There's no magic demo. I know back in the day, demos, they used to tailor them so that it was sometimes even better than the original game. Like they would tweak things and fine tune things because they want to make sure they make it after the fact and ship it out so that you're like, oh, I really want this game. And then you play it. And there's been documented like stuff on YouTube about this where the actual final product is debatably worse than the demo. That does not happen anymore.
Then you have the other side of that coin. And I don't know, tell me if you remember this. Metal Gear Solid 2's demo that came with Zone of the Enders. And they even included a speed running element to the demo. I don't know if you remember that, but
yes,
that's demo done right.
Yeah. Yeah, that game, that demo is what put Zone of the Enders on the map, right? It was a good game in its own right, ended up getting a sequel, but it was that connection to Metal Gear Solid 2 because everybody wanted to play that demo, so naturally, of course, you're going to buy that game, and then you're like, oh, this is actually a pretty fun game. Yeah.
I would argue, though, I feel like, to Enzo's point about the demo era is over for him, I feel like, me too, because I feel like beta has replaced demo. How many games come out in beta form first and you go, hey, let me try this out, and there's bugs and there's things, but then there's an opportunity for feedback to improve the game. Instead of putting out a demo to try to advertise what the complete game's going to offer, why don't we give people a preview and be a part of that experience of making a game into what they want it to be, rather than trying to sell them on something in a short period of time of what we think it's going, like what we want, what we've developed. So I think beta now has replaced, beta phase has replaced the demo aspect of games in today's world.
Now, Fluffy Bunny, our newest QTV Plus supporter, pointing out in chat, I can spend 2 hours on character creation and the tutorial. Demos are a waste of my time, and that's the problem with time demos, right, is that you're on the clock. So, and when you think about what PlayStation has created for themselves, right, as far as their branding goes, they're all about those single-player narrative-driven games, right? Bruno hammers that point home every chance he gets, and it rightfully so, right? And so when you think about, right, how much of that time is going to be locked up into cutscenes, going to be locked up into character creation or class selection, that by the time you actually get in there, you're going to be lucky if you get 45 minutes of actual gameplay.
I would be so pissed. I'd be
Yeah.
like, I just spent this entire time building my character to get in there and take 2 steps, and then I'm zoned out. Like, come on, like that would not make me want to buy it. I would be like,
Yeah.
nah, I'm good.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
I went
it's
through it.
anti-consumer. And you
It-
paid
it
you
really
paid to play
is.
that free demo. It's part of a premium tier of PlayStation. Like it's such a bizarre model. And look, the PS Plus rollout is scheduled for release in about a month in North America and Asia. So, and now developers are just now finding out that, oh yeah, those games that you're making for us, by the way, here's this extra stipulation that you aren't being compensated for. And I have to tell you, and I'm going to follow up with this tweet from a Washington Post journalist who does a lot of video game reviews for the site, Gene Park, right? So Gene Park went on this kind of tirade a little while back about how really PlayStation needs to find a way to kind of dial it in. He was talking about Naughty Dog games where he would rather play, smaller game experiences every few years rather than waiting, 5-6 years plus for a single AAA experience that always has a dev crunch and always seems to be incomplete at release, right? That's just the cycle of AAA games nowadays. The PlayStation community went after this guy. And I mean, a lot of people are standing up for him. But he says in this tweet, he says, I love and enjoy talking about PlayStation, but the way some in the community keep attacking and misinterpreting me for saying anything less than absolute praise honestly makes me reconsider ever saying anything about Sony. This is the lead video game journalist, electronics journalist for the Washington Post saying the trolls are so bad, he doesn't even want to talk about Sony anymore. And even says at the very end, you make this place less fun. Welcome to the internet, buddy. But that's crazy, right? We're in this era now. And look, I'm not going to say this is just a PlayStation thing because Lord knows on the internet, the tribalism and the console wars are caricatures of how real people actually talk about things. But it does seem right now that there's a lot of defensiveness within kind of the PlayStation camp of people thinking that they need to find a way to justify paying these premium prices for the ability to play demos for games that you will never own. The real thing, I think the real travesty here is the actual PS Plus model. When you go away from that top tier, it's not bad. Hundreds of games, very competitive, very similar to Game Pass in the way that they're approaching it, and their game streaming and even back catalog offerings. But the narrative is getting lost because they just had to put that third tier in there, and they just had to include paid game demos.
Well, Nick, I don't feel like I can comment on that too much. I'm not a PlayStation owner, so I'm looking at Enzo. You said you own a PlayStation. You haven't downloaded a game in a while. Looking at the tiers that are going to be coming out here in less than a month, do any of those excite you? Or are you going to be subscribing? You're going to be upgrading to one of those higher tiers? Like, what's your stance going forward as a PlayStation owner?
Remind me again what the middle tier is, because I'm a little fuzzy on it.
I'm going to Google it.
I think that one has the backwards compatibility with PS2 and PS3 games. It's got the catalog, streaming, 400 or 500 game catalog, PS4, PS5 games.
Right.
Like, to me, and you're right, to me, when I looked at it, and not just to put my 2 cents out there, if I was a PS owner or PlayStation owner, the middle tier to me is the best bang for your buck. But again, I don't know in terms of the backwards compatibility what legacy speaking wise you would want to play from the older generations.
Yeah. The pricing tiers on those, Enzo, so for the PS, what they're calling the PlayStation Plus Extra, that's the mid-tier. And that's clocking in at about $15 per month, though it's substantially cheaper if you get the yearly. It's $100. Sure. And that is going to pretty much get you everything except for those retro games. So I know on the premium tier, they're going to include the PS1, PS2 games. There's going to be a small but expanding catalog of games that you can play that way. And also they are including the demos for the premium tier. So ultimately it comes out to about $3 per month more if you paid monthly, and about $20 per year more if you were to pay for the yearly package. So I mean, it is more. It's not that much more, but I have to imagine when they're going to start making these sales calls that that tier is not going to perform for them.
I look at that and correct me if I'm wrong, but the first tier is basically PS Plus as we know it now.
Yes.
Okay.
For $10 a month. Yep.
So it that doesn't really change. So I look at that and say no harm, no foul. For that, if you don't want to change, you don't have to for the most part. But then when you start to really inspect and look at the tier 2 and then tier 3, it's like they really are cutting off their nose to spite their face when it comes to what they're willing to give you in each one, twisting your arm to make you go to that next level. I get mad at that. Like I do. I get upset when companies do it so blatantly like that. I think I would be comfortable sitting around the middle tier just because I am so adamant about the fact that there needs to be some sort of a change. But yeah, I don't think I could justify the third tier. Not until they until they prove it's a working model that people enjoy. And it's yeah, I think that's going to get critiqued and picked apart as much as anything does in the video game industry. But I'm not willing to give them that much more money until they show the model works.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're gonna see very quickly if they need to adapt or change. I think the narrative has made it clear that they were reluctant to show anything that was competitive to Game Pass. It took so long to roll it out; they didn't really do it with a whole lot of flair. And now they're receiving a lot of backlash and criticism for what they have released.
And Nick, one feature that's still being held out, correct me if I'm wrong, there's still no free day one ability to play the day one titles, right? Or titles on day one, like Game Pass. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like, Enzo, that's an opportunity, or Terry, do you feel like that's a big missing piece that they're holding out on here? Do you feel like that would be an added value that would really make you interested in jumping into that higher tier? Instead of having to pay $70 a pop just to play one of those, premier titles on day one?
As a consumer, I really enjoy having day one releases for Microsoft. It's great. If Sony can take the same model, I don't know. They haven't seemed to want to. Microsoft has their business model they want to go with, and that they decided that's going to be in their best interest. I don't know if that's in the best interest of Sony. But as a consumer, I really enjoy playing those day one titles. And if they were to disappear, maybe I would go back and buy those titles again. But there's a lot of Game Pass games that I've picked up and played that I would have bought, but I didn't have to because I have the service. And I continue to pay for the more premium service through Microsoft to have access to that.
Well, speaking of premium services, as always, we want to thank our sponsor, Pierce Unlimited, for marketing media that works and bespoke design to power your business. Visit pierceunlimited.com today. And Terry, I have to use that segue because you mentioned the Turnip Boy, rather you have written an article about Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. That was one of the games that actually showed up on Game Pass recently. And kind of at the end of the show here, I think we want to definitely talk about what you guys have going on. So tell us a little bit more about the stuff you've been doing on the blog and, some insight or maybe preview what's coming next.
For the fans of the Fallout series, I have some more stuff coming up. I have a couple places I've visited and I need to write about, and I've taken pictures in the game. I still fire up Fallout 76 every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so we have that to look forward to. And what, I don't know, we probably have some more things in the near future as well.
That's right. And you can always stop by on our Discord. If you want to get onto our Discord, just go to our website, quitthebuild.com. If you go to the community tab all the way at the bottom, there is a link to join our Discord. So stop on by and say hello to Terry. He's the sheriff of that there town.
And I'll probably be there when this gets aired too. And probably when you're listening to this, I'll probably be there as well. So
if you post a meme, he will respond.
If he's not eating, sleeping, or on the toilet, he's in Discord.
That's about it. And Enzo, look, we got to talk because you got some content going on out there. Of course, you and Biggs rounding out the wrestling side of the QTB network with the Double DQ podcast. How's things been going over there for you, man?
The Double DQ podcast is a wrestling podcast where we sometimes talk about wrestling. That's the best way to describe that podcast. We do it bi-weekly right now just because, unless we were doing a daily, drip of news, which would kind of take forever. It's better to have enough to talk about in the time that we give ourselves. And I want to say we've got some awesome stuff in the works. We've been talking off camera, and we're going to start doing watch-alongs, which is going to be great. We're going to do it through Discord. We're going to have some supplemental podcasts that are going to fill those bi-weekly gaps coming up soon. One of the ones that we talked about was we're going to talk about our favorite wrestling video games. So that's going to be a thing because there's a big crossover between wrestling and video games. Another thing that we're going to do is we're going to cast movies with wrestlers, like Mortal Kombat. Which wrestler would be the best person for this role? And we're going to argue it out.
Love that. Yes.
I'm in 100%.
So, that's what we got going on through QTB. And
I gotta say, Enzo, it's a great time to have the Double DQ podcast. Wrestling has really, in the last couple of years, really, I think, bounced back in terms of the competition, the product that's being put out. I mean, a wrestling fan myself, having AEW on the rise, and now you seeing Ring of Honor being bought out as well. I mean, there's a lot of movement going on in the wrestling world. Wrestlers are bouncing back and forth between companies. I mean, Cody Rhodes just came back to the WWE. It must be a fun time as a wrestling fan to be able to talk about that on a podcast, right?
Brad, I did not know that you had knowledge about wrestling, so you're going to have to come on the podcast sometime.
There you go.
It is a great
closet wrestling fan. Yeah, no one knew that. I just dropped that on the air just now. So
I'm excited. I'm excited because there's an AEW video game in the works. Tomorrow night, actually, on AEW Dynamite, they're going to have a big announcement following that on the upcoming video game. So I'm excited. They're actually targeting this year, which I don't see how they can make this year, but we're going to see. If you go to their website for the video game, it has a little preview thing for wrestlers that are they're showcasing, and it's called Wrestlers Showcase because they didn't even spell the word wrestlers right. So, maybe you're shooting a little over what you can achieve this year, but hopefully it's good.
I just have to say though, everything they've done thus far, it's been better than I was anticipating. So, I mean, the acquisitions to be able to bring people on, and see what the product they're putting out is. It's a nice change of pace for people who have gotten stale of watching WWE and the product that they put out and what they offer, which is great in its own right, but it's different, right? So for people who have a different want and a different feel for wrestling, you can get that by watching AEW. So
AEW is for the fans by a fan. Tony Khan is a wrestling fan. He was the guy, or the kid in the basement with his action figures making storylines. And that is legitimately from his mouth. So he's a guy playing with his toys, so to speak, and he's making all of that come to life. And it shows. He cares about the fans. Look at what we're getting soon. We're getting a New Japan Pro Wrestling AEW show.
Crossover. We never expected to see that. That is insane marketing, a brilliant idea, and to be able to work that and work that deal is incredible. So
positive
I have just two things to add. Just two things to add to this. One, we got Epic Capture already saying you are on the podcast list. So he is. We got one fan in the audience. There you go. And number two, while I may not be a wrestling aficionado, can I nominate Macho Man Randy Savage not as a character for Mortal Kombat, but the announcer?
Oh yeah,
snap it to him.
Oh yeah,
really? You wouldn't use Vince McMahon as the announcer?
Oh, that's pretty good.
I guess that's too obvious. Let Macho Man have like a Toasty cameo right there.
There's a few options.
Oh, good times.
Well, Enzo, we're looking forward to hearing more from you guys on Double DQ. I hope to get your take. I just saw in the news, because I do listen, Kurt Angle just said that he thinks Chris Jericho now is the greatest of all time. And he's recently replaced, in his mind, as Shawn Michaels as being the GOAT to Chris Jericho. So hopefully you guys maybe address that comment and see what you guys think on that here soon, because I think that's a pretty powerful statement. So be interested to hear what you guys have, what your takes are on that. So.
I'll save my thoughts for the podcast. That is something that I'll definitely bring up on the next one. I might err on the side of agreeing with that. We'll see.
Oh, well, for
Roy
our
says
listeners,
Undertaker.
As the announcer.
Fan.
Absolutely.
Well, that would be a great way to, instead of saying fatality, you just say rest in peace. I mean, that
there you go.
Would be pretty cool.
I would pay good money for a wrestling version of Mortal Kombat. You have to wonder, all the cameos they brought into the last Mortal Kombat game, right? And a wrestler didn't make the cut, but Rambo did. Come on. Just
there would never be a WWE wrestler because they're so locked down on their independent contractor deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
the way
know.
it
John
goes.
Cena could show up. You'd never see him. He'd just be there.
Yeah. Cue the soundboard if Bruno was here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, hey, listen, Terry, Enzo, thank you so much for guesting with us. It was a lot of fun. And again, we'll have links to your content there in the show notes. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. And don't forget to our listeners and viewers, check us out at quitthebuild.com. That's your one-stop shop for everything Quit the Build. We've got our blog articles. And of course, we have our network shows. You can get more information about those as well. And don't forget to stop by our merch page to get you some swag. That squad swag, that right there. So look, I feel that I'm wearing a Power Rangers t-shirt, but we got these other guys just sporting the merch. So first of all, we have Brad modeling the vintage collegiate model, or rather the logo, collegiate logo for Quit the Build, one of our original logos, still available on our shop. And Terry rocking that new retro vibe.
The
vintage. You can't go wrong. Just that classic 70s steez, as they
and
say.
Nick,
yes.
we don't just have t-shirts. We've got our limited edition ugly Christmas shirt. We've got throw pillows. We've got pop sockets.
Pop sockets.
We've got it all, right? And a variety of awesome, fonts and colors. I mean, you can get one for everyone in the family.
Yeah, exactly. Stock up. Or, you could go to Belkin for Mother's Day since they sponsored the big story. You could just go get her a t-shirt, for God's sake. Get her something. Just get her something. That's all we're saying, okay?
I'm saving my money for the Nick Funko Pop.
Yeah, you're going to be waiting for a while. It's not a money issue. It's a time issue.
What is it? Is it the Nick Shapiro Funko Pop?
Probably. That's what everybody says.
The
My
crossover.
goodness.
I haven't said,
that's just who I'm entwined with, I guess. All right, guys. Well, you know what we do. The last time for the 100th episode, we tried having everybody say it all at the same time, and we damn near overloaded our client. So we're gonna try to do it one at a time. Nick, Brad, Enzo, and then Terry. Here we go. Until next time, everybody. For Brad, Enzo, and Terry, I'm Nick.
For Nick, Enzo, and Terry, I'm Brad.
For Enzo, Nick, and Brad, I'm Terry.
Take us out, Enzo.
For Terry, Nick, and Brad, I'm Enzo.
Hey, there it is.
Peace out. What it do?